Hey everyone, welcome to Marketing and Innovation Day. Brand Innovators, super excited to be here and talk about brand authenticity. I'm Ken Willner, Chief Growth Officer at TextNow. For those of you that don't know, TextNow is the largest free mobile phone service in the US. And free is free. What I mean by that is the way that we are able to support over 7 million monthly active users on our platform is through partnership with brands like you. So it's an ad-supported platform. And brand authenticity is a topic that I'm super excited to be talking about. I promise nothing we're going to say up here is going to top the Foo Fighters or Coldplay, though. That's an auspicious thing to follow. But we are going to talk about brand authenticity and what it means to some of the marketing leaders next to me and their top tier companies with loyal followings. It's important to me and to TextNow because we have essentially a social contract with our users where we provide phone service and access for free in exchange for them viewing ads largely. And we never want to violate that contract. We always want to stay authentic with those users, particularly a large portion of our users being from underserved communities who need access to phone service. So with that, I'll kick it off and let everybody introduce themselves and we'll start the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Evan Slater. Thanks for listening today. And Brand Innovators for having us. I'm with Billabong. I've been in the surf industry since right out of college and been a surfer for much longer than that. Started when I was like 8 years old. So feel like this authenticity topic is something that I have to think about and live with every single day. And I'm excited to share my experiences over the years in the surf industry.
Hi, everybody. My name is Andy Rehbun. I'm the CMO of Pollo Loco. My background is cars, cheeseburgers, chicken, Ford, McDonald's, Pollo Loco. Thank you to Brand Innovators for hosting us and Audacy, and excited to talk with you today.
Hi, y'all. Thank you. Hi, my name is Tulani Elisa. I'm a global social lead at Prime Video. I've been in entertainment industry for a few years. Before that, have really worked across the board in sports, education, government, all of that. And so really excited to chat with y'all today about brand authenticity across a lot of different sectors.
Awesome. Well, why don't we kick it off? I'll throw out a softball to start, which is, what does brand authenticity mean at your companies and brands, and how do you apply it?
I think, at any brand, authenticity really means you're both talking the talk and walking the walk. In this day and age, I feel like everyone's trying to be more real than the next one or more in tune with what's going on, and they start to lose a little bit of what their brand is, and what they are able to provide, and can sometimes step out of their lane, essentially. And so I think when brands are able to stay in their lane and be authentic and be inclusive and have conversations that they can truly have an impact on, that's when people start to see the authenticity in the work that they're doing, in the way that they're working in their communities, and also working for their actual brand. And so I think that's really the most important part of it.
So I'm going to actually ask the audience a question. How many of you on the way into this presentation this morning was served an advertisement of some way, shape, or form, or any type of thing that you listen to? Okay, that's pretty much nearly every hand, unless you're on your cell phone. But pretty much, I think one of the things that's so interesting about brand authenticity is that we're all competing for somebody's attention, right? And so you need to do something that is constantly resonating with either your clientele that you're currently serving or a clientele that you're trying to serve. And I think one of the things that I struggle with, and we always debate about with our agency, is how do you continue to be meaningful and resonate with your current customer base while trying to attract a larger audience. And I think that's something that brands struggle with today, especially during the pandemic. People's attention spans are very small. I mean, look, I'm already thinking about the next question he's probably going to ask us. And so I think that I think it's one of those things that, you know, you really have to be true to yourself and your audience and make sure that your messages is clear, concise, compelling. I mean, those are kind of like that's kind of my directive is we need to be clear with what we're trying to say. We need to do it in a short, limited time span, and it has to be compelling. So it has to resonate with that audience base. So it's different wherever you work, and it's also something that, you know, you need to hold tried and true.
I think this works. The surf apparel industry is interesting. If you think about it, how many people have heard of the brand Ocean Pacific, OP, right? Like there's a lot of brands, and if you look at sort of the lifespan of a lot of these brands that have started up in our space, it really is equatable to how long people surfed back in the 70s and 80s, like it was basically through their adolescence, and then they became adults and quit and moved on, and the brands went out of business. There's a few surf brands now that have been existed for longer than 50 years. Billabong is just about to be one of them. So in 2023, we'll be 50 years old. Usually we don't like to celebrate our 50th birthdays as humans. But it really says a lot about how Billabong as a brand has stayed true to the vision of its founder, who's still very much involved. He doesn't work in the day-to-day, but his vision for what Billabong could be still is the first slide that we share with our regional teams around the world, because we still believe wholeheartedly in his vision for why he started Billabong in the first place. So that's really the starting point, and there's so much more to talk about, but we have the luxury of having that founder vision still be, you know, stronger and more relevant than ever 50 years later.
Yeah, it's really phenomenal. So it strikes me that one of the ways to get at brand authenticity, be authentic with your customers, is through insights, like understanding what their needs are, understanding, you know, how they relate to your brand and your product and so forth. What are examples of things that you may have learned about your customers or users that helped you get closer to brand authenticity with them? And or what are some of the challenges that you may have faced? Yeah.
So I think probably for us, we're always known in LA as like a chicken brand, right? And I think everybody knows El Pollo Loco for serving amazing chicken on the bone. I think that for a very long time, we were always seen as kind of our parents' brand. And as we have evolved and wanted to stay true to our brand authenticity, I really think of this cornerstone moment just in terms of our calendar this year. Specifically in March, we launched a product called Shredded Beef Birria. This was not something that was core to El Pollo Loco, but it was something that forever changed the trajectory of our company, and I think changed our positioning moving forward. One of the things we learned in terms of insights was in Los Angeles specifically, this whole notion of birria was very popular amongst small Mexican taco trucks throughout the space of Los Angeles. And this was something that millennials, Gen Z were clamoring at the bit for. And so one of the things that we did, and we've done a lot more social insight digging with kind of the way we position our brand and obviously decide what we want to put on our menu, was, can we be more than just a chicken brand? And it was something, you know, Chipotle does it very well. There's a number of other brands that do, you know, just beyond one meat very well. And so we decided, you know, we're going to test it. We're going to potentially launch it. And the test went very well. The launch, it was our most successful LTO launch in company history. We had 5 weeks of record sales in March and April. And so for us, it was really leaning into the insights and learning that this was something that, you know, our current customers wanted, our prospective customers wanted, and ultimately you can learn a lot through social insight digging and ultimately expand your brand beyond just being a chicken brand, which we did. So
that happened organically, like
it did happen organically. So we launched the product. It was March 17th of this year. We had the first day of sales was 1% of our sales mix. We essentially had probably about 200, 300 organic TikTok reviews on the night of March 17th. People just went out, they tried the product, et cetera. Wow. March 18th, it went up to 8%. That next day, we had over 2,500 organic reviews on TikTok. This is kind of a perfect example of how a brand can kind of modernize through what is kind of a more modern social platform, word of mouth, authenticity. And one of the things we made sure to do is we wanted to make sure, let the product speak for itself. And even if there was a bad review, like I didn't get enough beef, the consomme was too salty, we wanted the conversation to occur, because then that would create debate, it would create more noise and allow us to break through.
That's great. Thank you.
As a TV person, I thought you were going to talk about loot. Have you?
Yes, I have
I
seen
bet.
Loot. Yes. The writers are very
Is-
kind to us.
I was like, is he going to talk about loot? I think just being in the social space, what's helpful is obviously knowing your audience, and you have audience insights, and we all have teams that do research into that. But looking at that audience and seeing what else they consume, what are the things that they're already interested in. And I think, you can do a lot of research insights. But like he was just saying, it really is, what are they responding to? What are people talking about? And social allows so much of that, of really actually doing the research of what's resonating, what's not, what are people reacting positively to or reacting at all to, that's really pushing the needle in actual conversations, because it is so busy. There are so many things that are always coming out, but people show what they care about and what's important through their posts, through what they follow, through the comments they make. And I think it's up to us as marketers to really pay attention and not just say, they're this demographic, so they like this. And knowing that you have to segment and you have to really pay attention to the nuances of what people are watching on TV, or what they're eating and what they're saying about what they're eating, or what they're looking for from the actual, brand that they're consuming food from, or that they're watching TV on, and then respond that way. And being willing to, maybe change what you thought was the right approach or the right post or the right way to market something is definitely something you have to be open and flexible to when you get those insights that tell you the way to go.
And have you, Tulani, has Amazon Prime Video done that? Like, do you feel like when you're doing social listening and you're understanding what people are essentially voting for, does that impact the product mix, like, and the way you go to market?
Yeah, it impacts, Prime Video, we're talking about entertainment. So when our pages are posting, when we're looking at what goes out into the world, we're paying attention to what people are gravitating towards, right? That's always kind of the thing with social, is you can get those immediate pieces of feedback to say, maybe we shouldn't keep posting, this piece of content or this show in this way. What are people really gravitating towards? In entertainment, that BTS, people getting that behind the scenes look at talent, getting the actual, getting engagement from actual talent or people that are working on set, all of that. People love that, right? So why wouldn't we lean into that in campaigns? Why wouldn't we push for that when we're even kicking off stuff? So it's something that, a lot of times people want to post the glossy thing. They want to post the thing that makes you look best, but people want the gritty. They want to know what else is going on, and leaning into that is something that's always really successful for us.
And authentic. I mean,
Exactly.
Yeah, the surf world, like any world, has this passionate core group of audience that can call you out if you take any kind of misstep. And the nuances are so subtle that if you don't know, if you don't know these nuances, you're going to blow it, right? So even if you're marketing somebody holding their board wrong, you're going to hear about it, right? There's a certain way to hold your board and all these little rules. And the challenge for us always is that like eternal riddle of how to stay, true to our core, which we feel very confident in doing, and we can do that all day long, but also expanding our business and making surfing more inclusive for everybody, and bringing more people into the conversation. In some ways, we've done that over the years is through partnerships with either brands or other IP or musicians and that kind of thing. And I think that's where we get a lot of our learnings on how we can do that in a way that still resonates with our core audience, but also brings in a new audience and makes them feel like they can participate with the brand as well. And I'll give two examples. One would be, so we did a partnership with Wrangler a couple of years ago, and you might for top of mind going, why the heck would you do anything with Wrangler? Billabong and Wrangler, what does that mean? And as a marketer, we have to really look at what's the authentic thread between the two brands to be able to tell that story in a way that can get the audiences to buy in, both on the denim side and on Billabong side. And it turns out that our founder, Gordon Merchant, who grew up on the Gold Coast of Australia, had a big issue with the surf shorts of the time. This was in the early 70s. And he had a pair of Wrangler jeans that he wore that he basically tried to model a pair of what they're called board shorts after the fit of his Wrangler jeans. And so we're like, we'll tell that story all day long. It's incredible. And so we really dove deep on telling that origin story of the first pair of board shorts based off these Wrangler jeans. And then here's this collaboration that comes together that shows this, from the Wild West to the Wild West. I'm not going to try to sell you on this right now, but but I will say that the amount of backlash was minimal, and people really embraced the idea of like, oh wow, it's a great story. It sold really well both across men's and women's categories, and we ended up doing 2 or 3 different drops with them over like a year and a half. On the other side of that conversation is like, as we all know, a lot of brands are just the collaboration engine has been well overheated for a few years. And so you're seeing every brand try to just license IP from, tried and true formulas from the past. No offense to anybody in the Disney licensing world, if there's anybody here, but we partnered with The Simpsons on a collaboration, and the marketing team was initially excited about this, thinking that, oh man, how cool is this going to be when we incorporate our team writers with, Bart and the rest of the Disney, Simpsons characters. And we had, 90 ideas of what we want to do. Well, 90 ideas got shot down, and it was basically like stamp your logo on Simpson stuff and don't ask any more questions. And we could tell like our audience was absolutely just lukewarm at best with a collection like that. And the difference in the energy and engagement that we got out of something that you wouldn't think that would be that successful, a Wrangler collection versus a Simpsons, was night and day. And again, that goes back to needing that authentic thread between any kind of 2 brands or partnerships in order to open up that aperture for your brand.
Yeah, you have a really interesting challenge, I think, with your brand, because surf culture, it is almost like religion, especially those core people. And I imagine balancing growth and new ideas without sort of violating those core tenets is especially for 50 years. That's a pretty difficult.
There's been many failed attempts, not just
bet.
Billabong, but lots of brands in our space. Yeah.
Awesome. Andy, so I am familiar with El Pollo Loco from when I lived here, and I did think of it as a chicken brand. So I'm glad to hear you guys are expanding and doing new things. Tell me how you're able to stay authentic with your customers as you scale. Because how many stores do you have now?
So we have 480 restaurants.
Yeah.
We're in California, Arizona, Nevada, Utah, Texas, Louisiana. We're opening up in Denver in about 6 weeks. And then we've also announced publicly plans to open in Oklahoma City, Kansas City, Albuquerque, and some other cities in Texas.
And so as you scale, like, how do you think about not losing what makes you special with your customers?
Yeah, I think it's chicken education, because it's really, that's kind of the unique product that we own. And I think it's something that people really respect about us. We have that culinary credibility. And I think one of the challenges that I have to kind of absorb and decide as CMO is, we're positioned as a LA brand, right? People know us in LA. We have 280 restaurants in California. But what is fascinating is about 8 to 10 years ago, when the brand decided to move into Texas, you look at our Texas restaurants and there was like a big state of California map with an LA stamped in the center of that. And for those of you who are familiar with Texas, that is not the move. Texas is very proud of Texas, and, probably can be its own country if it wanted to be. No offense to anybody from Texas, but I would just say that, they're very proud and passionate about what Texas culture has to offer. And so, one of the things that we did, I spoke to my franchisee in Texas about 8 or 9 months ago when I first had the job, and we decided that we were going to put a map of the state of Texas in his restaurant. And so we swapped out the California map, put in the state of Texas map, and really give it that local feel. So chicken is going to be the consistency piece that is marketed and talked about in Texas. And while we are a brand of LA heritage, which is something that we can talk about here pretty openly and proudly, we're not going to talk about Los Angeles as we go into Texas or as we go into Denver. We're LA rooted, but we are good at what we do, which is grilling chicken, 55-minute cook process. And you've probably seen it before if you've gone inside the restaurant or through the drive-through. You have the 3 different stations where the chicken is kind of marinating and slow cooking. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And being able to kind of recognize that and, not sort of violate that trust in Texas or these new entrants, these new markets you go into is really key.
Absolutely.
Talani, so streaming is obviously exploding right now with, I don't know, are there 500 streamers now out there? Seems like it. And of course, Netflix made the big announcement that they're going to accept advertising for the first time, and others are doing the same. I think Prime Video started on that track a while ago, as I recall. How do you, as we're talking about authenticity, when you introduce the idea of third parties coming on your platform, I saw a lot during the NFL game, by the way, which was awesome. How do you maintain that relationship with your viewers and with your subscribers as you start to introduce third parties onto the platform?
Yeah, well, I think, Prime Video is unique because we do have Freevee, which used to be IMBD TV. And so that's an ad supported service. Still it has amazing content, but it's known to be free and to be ad supported. Prime Video for now, you see it on TNF because it's live, but that's unique to that. I think, as people bring in third parties, obviously the first thing that, a Netflix or another company is thinking about is that they do have a lot of data, right? And so data does help breed that, we'll say, authenticity, in the sense of everywhere you go, every app you get on, they ask, can we follow? Can we, and though there's privacy thoughts, there's all of these things, that's what helps people or brands actually serve you ads that might be interesting and that might not be completely off from what you even want to see. With that said, though, we don't have a ton of that. We're kind of a different streamer because we have this big ecosystem of Amazon. So it's not just our only bread and butter to be a streamer. So it doesn't really apply directly to us, but I know that with other streamers that are now introducing it and now having to figure out ways to make it feel authentic, it's how do you localize, right? How do you, just like Andy was saying, like, how do you make sure that you're not serving someone in LA that's watching this an ad for something in Denver? Right? It's not gonna resonate in the same way. And then how do you use the way people are watching, the way people are engaging on other platforms to serve things that are actually going to connect to things they might be interested in if they have to get ads, right? And so I think some of that connects back. And I think also, it's an interesting transition, having come from network television and going into streaming, and now a lot of streamers are kind of starting to act more like network television. And so I think it's people kind of understanding that, what they're getting into, right? So the authenticity part, a lot of, streamers are raising their prices or they're, adding ads, all of that. It's like having that conversation with consumers, with fans, and not kind of, pushing it under the rug of, we're going to have to charge you more, you're going to have interruptions, but like really explaining, this is why we're doing it and here are your actual options. And I think that a lot of streamers that are starting that will have to really lean into having the conversation, because you're getting that immediate feedback. You're going to get the pushback on social. You're going to get, people upset about your brand or about, what you've changed. And if you don't get in front of that, that's when it kind of starts to eat away at what you're trying to do for the company overall.
Yeah, it sounds like, and Amazon is in a really unique position, obviously, because
Exactly.
you can connect those dots to shopper data and so forth, because every Prime Video watcher obviously is a Prime member. And so you have all that rich shopping data and so forth. Is there a way to use that data, the power for good, so to speak? Like, is there connecting those dots to be able to make that viewing experience more authentic for them? Like, I'm not sure how that would happen, but is that what you're trying to do?
Completely out of my pay grade.
Okay, all right, okay, good.
Not really my purview, but I think that everything we do now is connected.
Yeah.
And so I think that what's important is setting the precedence of what's happening, what people are doing, paying attention to the data that people do have, whether it's for streaming or for social or anything, and then responding in a way that feels both authentic but also open, and not something we don't really have no one really has the luxury to hide behind anything or say we didn't know or say we're not listening or where do we find this, but really, doing the research and making sure that what you're serving or what you're doing or what you're changing is transparent.
Yeah. One of the shifting gears to talk about just sort of the macro space we're in right now, macro economy. One of the things we've noticed, as there's no secret, it's tough times in the US, worldwide, but it's tough times in the US economically for a lot of folks. And one of the things we're noticing is our user base is growing because people can't afford phone service, right? So we offer a solution to that, free phone service, in exchange for the value exchange being advertising. And that combination is working for us. Like we've seen a lot of growth around this, and people sort of understanding that, hey, maybe I don't need to pay for phone service, and our sponsors and our advertisers having the opportunity to create that value exchange with the users, right, has been a real big plus. Have you noticed anything? Have things changed with how you approach your users as the economy has been tougher for folks?
Well, I would say for us, I mean, our vision for the brand and its place in the world is obviously more narrow than, say, an Amazon, or even possibly even an El Pollo Loco. But for in our space, we need, basically our mission is to inspire youth through progressive surf culture, right? And what does that mean? Well, that means we want to make an impact on the surf world that has such resonance that people outside and the surf inspired can hear that and pay attention to it. So that hasn't changed, but obviously the world has changed, and even surf culture continues to evolve. So it's really important for us to listen and be ahead of that curve. There's obviously more subtle shifts that we need to make within the surf world itself that is representative of the larger macro forces. I think the past few years have been a huge, it's been very eye-opening for me, and probably some of the most exciting times for me as a marketer in our space, because we really did have the opportunity for, let's just say, the CEOs and the executive leadership team to really listen to what we're hearing in the ground and what we can do to evolve and get our brand to a place where we think it should be on the cultural front. And again, I go back to the inclusivity thing. So Billabong has this famous tagline from back in the 70s and 80s, and it was only a surfer knows the feeling. Has anybody heard that? Only a surfer knows the feeling. Some people may not. It's like huge, it's like Coke is real or something, and surfing. But so that was our sort of founder's idea. But what he was trying to get at was sharing this incredible magic feeling of wave riding with the greater world. We've evolved that over time to just know the feeling, right? And our vision as a brand to really share that, get as many people in the world to understand and know the feeling of that magic, whether it's metaphorical or actual physical. So it opens it up, right? And it allows us to really think about how we can help create a more diverse culture in the lineup, and also support programs that get more people in the water. So,
and is it working? Like, do you see
absolutely
more inclusivity? Do you see new people getting into surfing? I mean, how?
Yes, and it really is about the brands that have the larger platforms to be able to tell those stories, because surfing exists all over the world right now. The ISA World Games, is International Surfing Association World Games, is going on in Huntington Beach, and this is the first step towards the Olympics, which will be in 2024. There's 82 countries being represented in these games, including Lithuania, Ukraine, Senegal, many countries in Africa. We sponsor a kid from Senegal in West Africa who is tearing through the event and has a great chance of fulfilling his dreams of being in the Olympics. These are the kind of stories that we as a brand maybe didn't look for enough and are now really highlighting as just our lead stories.
I think it's an interesting time right now from a macroeconomic perspective. I think you see commodities go through the roof. You see inflation go through the roof. People's wages are not catching up with the price increases. So as you've probably been driving around Los Angeles, you've seen McDonald's has shifted their advertising into 2 for $3.99. Carl's is buy one, get one for $1. Del Taco's 20 under 2. Wendy's is the $5 biggie box. So everybody's kind of going after price at this moment. It's a really interesting type of situation because I think people are being a lot more mindful. We regularly drop a coupon in the mail probably every 6 weeks. And the coupon that we dropped about 2 weeks ago, it's had the highest redemption that I think we've had in probably about 5 years. So to me, that's a signal that, we definitely have to be mindful of the price increasing that we're doing, but at the same time, not cheapen the brand to the extent of I've kind of seen the competitors do a lot of extensive value advertising. And so you have to balance all of that, right? Because you obviously have a P&L that you have to monitor. You have investors that obviously are constantly watching the stock and looking at margins. And so for us, it's really just trying to position ourselves to the extent that we understand what's happening in the economy, letting our customers know that we understand what they're going through and always providing that kind of everyday value that they can count on. So whether it be coupons through the mail, whether it be through our mobile app, Local Rewards, which we always offer the best price through an offer on that platform, we really try to make our customers understand that we understand the times that they're going through and we're going to be here for them. So it's always very interesting to see the first thing that happens when the economy sours is most brands in the restaurant space, albeit not maybe Sweetgreen, Mendocino Farms, or Chipotle, most of the fast food brands will turn to price because that's kind of the motivator and the transaction driver. So we just have to strike a fine balance between what is going to be transaction driving and what is not ultimately going to cheapen the brand.
Do you use different channels for that? Like, how do you communicate that? In other words, to your point, like
Absolutely.
you want to drive value messaging and you want to talk about price in certain cases, but
Right.
you don't want to cheapen the brand.
Right. So we kind of have two different value strategies at our brand right now. We have a $5 fire grilled combo, which is essentially a full meal for $5. We have a chicken cheese quesadilla, 3 tacos, all carbone, a classic chicken burrito, and an original pollo bowl, which you can get for $5. And then we have higher end value at $24, which essentially can feed a family of 4. You get eight pieces of fire grilled chicken, you get 2 sides, you get a loco side salad, and 4 churros for $24. So it's a good deal. Sorry, that's my plug. For all of you who arrived early, you can email me. I'll send you some free El Pollo Loco lunch on me.
Nice. I'm hungry.
Okay, cool. But I think ultimately, you have the single user, you have the family occasion user, and you have to kind of balance your messaging to speak to all different audiences that use your brand. And so we have different day part rotation that we kind of advertise that messaging. We obviously have a digital consumer who's very apt to trying to open up their app and see which is the best discount they can get from all the different brands that they have the app downloaded on their phones from. And then clearly the physical couponing, which is every 6 to 8 weeks, which we drop in the mail, which I'm sure most of you throw away, but it is very popular for us.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Talani, have you noticed any impact since over the last 18 months, 12 months?
Yeah, it's interesting because when you ask this question, I more thought of the fact that it's been 3 years of us having to react to what's happening in the world. So I think prices, are coming up now, but from the pandemic to people dealing with the kind of like loss and changes and everything to, loudly quitting your job, quietly quitting your job to, COVID to money, it's so many things that we've been reacting to as brands, as a community, that's really where the authenticity has really amped up. Like, I think that's even why this is such an important conversation and panel and topic now, that we've all gone through all of this. So I think, responding to, the tough times with money, gas, everything is really important, but responding to everything that's happening and is still happening is so important for every brand. And it's overwhelming. And I think that's where, it's like the rubber meets the road of like, is your brand authentic. When everyone was closed in their house, what did you do? How did you pivot? What did you provide? I know working in social and entertainment, where those were the two things that skyrocketed, right? So how were you then tapping into the actual conversations, things that were happening, and making sure what you were putting out there provided a moment of joy or entertainment, but also spoke to the real things that were happening with COVID, with, African Americans being killed, with all of these things going on in the world, and not just like continuing to post or have these conversations or put things out there as if we weren't all going through it. I think that's the same thing with people going through difficult financial times of, you see the reaction where, whether it's, I mean, maybe not a Met Gala, but like these big things where you see a lot of, people kind of reacting in different ways than they might have before these tougher financial times, right? Where
like they're tone deaf. It's just, yes.
exactly, there's a lot of things where it's like, this is great, but what are you guys, doing to help with homelessness or help with, people that can't even get to work because they can't buy gas? What are the bigger conversations? And so I think it's paying attention to what you're putting out there, what like voice you're taking on that responds to the community, that responds to other things going on, what partnerships, are you, what, money are you supporting, all of that. And so I think it's, interesting. And I think it's interesting to watch brands of, what they are pushing as important, how they're responding to things, and when they're taking a break from pushing and just listening, right? Whether it's a war, whether it's, things happening in our own country, when are they maybe not pushing so hard and saying, we're going to take a day of silence, or we're going to take a moment to listen to what people need, or we're going to take this day to actually just take a break from this and give back. What are the ways that brands are doing that? And I think that, sometimes it's the quiet moments, or it's the reaction, or it's the actual listening that provides authenticity to brands amongst all of these things that are happening, with everyone. And to say, okay, like I've had people say, or, friends, like, I think someone at my job is quiet quitting. And it's like, okay, but why? Right? Because those kinds of things are in reaction to loss, to difficult times, to adjusting to a new life with, different finances, or family that was lost to COVID, or, a depression that might have come over you in the last crazy 3 years. And so I think both personally and brand wise, we need to pay attention to all of these things that are affecting us in like a 3-year span that's never hit this world in the same way. Right? Like I was talking to my mom, she's like, the 70s were crazy, but like at least it was a decade. Like we've been in
was
this,
spread out over 10 years. Yeah.
we've been in this like 2.5 years, and like more stuff has happened than anyone could have ever imagined. Right. And so with, something new coming out every day, I think it's even the bigger picture of past just money, but how are we paying attention to the energy and the souls of these people that we're hoping to connect with and get things from as well.
Yeah, well, I think you're saying is, brands have, and particularly yours, but any significant brand is a platform. You have a platform that you can use to help comfort people in ways that brands should be aware of.
And I think it also is, how are people being heard? Because I think the other part is, and you see a lot more brands doing this, the younger generation of people, they're obsessed, as they should be, with diversity and with being unique and with defining who they are, not by what they're doing or buying or watching, but by what they truly feel. And your brand, has to be able to respond to that, has to, I think it's so amazing that Billabong is sponsoring someone from Senegal. And, that's important because you don't often think of surfing as, African-American focused or reaching outside of mainstream countries. And I think it's little things like that push the needle, and authenticity comes in. And when you think about, what can I do that's authentic as my brand, not what is everyone else doing, what are they asking for, let's just react to it, but who's that one kid we can sponsor, who's that small thing that we can listen, how can we connect better with a community that might be emerging or that might be hurting. And so I think that's also really important.
It's awesome. Well, I think we are out of time. That was fantastic panel. Thank you guys. And thanks everybody for listening.